Out of all the stories I've shared on this channel, today's tale is one of the most disturbing I've ever told. Don't worry, there won't be any graphic images or footage. But there is a deeply unsettling part near the end, so listener discretion is advised. If you love strange, dark, and mysterious stories told in an engaging way, you're in the right place because that's exactly what we do here. We post new content once or twice a week, so if you enjoy it, hit that like button like you're stealing it away forever. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly uploads. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Out of all the stories I've shared on this channel, today's tale is one of the most disturbing I've ever told. But there is a deeply unsettling part near the end, so listener discretion is advised. If you love strange, dark, and mysterious stories told in an engaging way, you're in the right place because that's exactly what we do here. Have you ever wondered what secrets the ocean holds? Beneath its waves lie mysteries darker than any nightmare. And tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about the Reward, a cursed yacht that took everything from those who dared sail it. But beware, some tales are best left untold. Are you ready to uncover the truth? If this chilling bedtime story kept you on edge, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another tale like this one. Hit that like button and share this video with your friends, because everyone deserves a good scare before bed. And hey, if you want to turn these thrills into real-life success, click the link below to discover how you can have a 90% done-for-you profitable online business built just for you. Generate maximum money in minimum time without selling or setting anything up yourself. Sweet dreams, but keep the lights on tonight. In 1986, Mark Rivers was a 39-year-old dad raising two teenage sons. He had been married to their mom, but they divorced earlier that year. One day, Mark took his boys to a chili cook-off happening in their neighborhood in Sunny Cove, California. As he stood there scanning the crowd, something, or someone, caught his eye. Across the lawn, he spotted a breathtakingly beautiful woman he'd never seen before. Without realizing it, he stared at her for so long that she eventually noticed. She glanced up, smiled shyly, and then looked down, blushing. Realizing he'd been caught staring, Mark felt his face flush with embarrassment. Determined to recover, he decided to go introduce himself. So, with confidence, because Mark was ruggedly handsome, strong, and rocking an epic mustache, he strode across the grass. When he reached her, he greeted her warmly. Her name was Lily, she was 29 years old, single, and from the moment they started talking, sparks flew. They connected instantly, falling head over heels in love. Just a few years later, in 1989, they tied the knot in front of 150 friends and family members. After the wedding, Lily moved in with Mark and his sons. Even though their biological mom was still alive, the boys began calling Lily Mom. What? Because Lily didn't just live with them. She poured her heart into being the best stepmom anyone could ask for. She was kind, caring, and completely devoted to those boys. There was just one thing about Lily. When she was 22, she'd survived a terrible motorcycle accident. The injuries left her unable to have children of her own, a dream she'd always cherished. So when fate gave her the chance to become a mother to Mark's sons, she embraced it wholeheartedly. Over the years, Mark and Lily raised those boys together as a happy family. Then, in 2002, the kids grew up and moved out. It was bittersweet for Mark and Lily. They were proud of their sons but sad to see them leave home. Still, now that the nest was empty, the couple looked forward to spending more time together. Little did they know their lives were about to take a horrifying turn. The day their sons moved out was bittersweet for Mark and Lily. So much of their lives had revolved around being parents, and they were incredibly close to their boys. Still, they'd known this moment would come eventually, and they'd spent years preparing for it. Every year, they set aside money, determined to retire as soon as the nest emptied. Their dream? To buy a yacht and sail along the coasts of California and Mexico, living life on the open water. They weren't rich by any means, but Mark and Lily were masters at saving. They lived simply, cutting costs wherever they could, and over time they managed to save nearly every penny they earned. By 2002, when their sons finally left home, they sold their house in Sunny Cove, California. Between the proceeds from the sale and all the money they'd saved, they had just enough to purchase a small, worn-down yacht. They named her the Reward, a fitting name, even though she wasn't glamorous or fancy like most people imagine yachts to be. But Mark and Lily loved her. As soon as the boat was theirs, they docked it in Newport and moved all their belongings aboard. Over the next few months, they worked tirelessly to clean, organize, and upgrade every inch of the yacht within their tight budget. By summer, the Reward was transformed, beautiful inside and out, cozy and full of character, unmistakably a reflection of Mark and Lily's hard work. For the next 2 years, they lived their dream. Sailing up and down the coast, they watched breathtaking sunsets, caught fresh fish, and sipped cocktails together under the stars. Retirement was everything they'd hoped for. Then in 2004, unexpected news arrived. One of their sons called to say he and his wife were expecting a baby, their first grandchild. Mark and Lily were overjoyed, especially Lily. Remember, she couldn't have children of her own, so the thought of becoming a grandmother filled her with excitement. She couldn't wait to hold that precious little one in her arms. Though they adored life on the yacht, Mark and Lily decided it was time to sell it. With the money from the sale, they'd buy a house on land to be closer to their son and the new baby. In November, they placed an ad in a boating magazine listing the reward for about $500,000. Not long after, a young couple offered to buy it. Thrilled, Mark and Lily called their sons to share the good news. "We've got a buyer," they said. "The sale will be finalized in a few days and we'll call you soon." Days passed, but the sons didn't hear back. They tried calling their parents repeatedly, but no one answered. This was unusual. Mark and Lily always stayed in touch with their family. Something felt off. When Jim, Mark's brother and a retired police chief, heard about the sudden silence, he immediately grew concerned. He jumped into his car and drove straight to Sunny Cove, hoping to find answers. Alongside a friend, Jim made his way to the marina where the reward was docked. Together, they walked down to the floating docks, searching for signs of Mark and Lily, or their beloved yacht. As Jim and his friends stood beside the reward, it didn't seem like anyone was on board. But something felt off. Jim noticed a few strange things right away. There were ropes hanging over the side of the boat, ropes that should have been neatly stowed. Mark was known for being meticulous, keeping the yacht spotless and organized. He wouldn't have left those ropes dangling unless he was still aboard, which clearly he wasn't. Jim also spotted tarps meant to cover the control panels lying nearby, and used. Again, not something Mark or Lily would ever do. And then there were dirty towels hanging out of one of the portholes, a detail that clashed with how clean and tidy the couple always kept their yacht. The whole scene gave Jim and his friend the impression that the new owners must have taken possession of the boat already. Clearly, they weren't as careful as Mark and Lily had been. Thinking this through, Jim pulled out his business card and scribbled a note on the back. "If you're the new owner of this yacht, please call me. My brother and his wife sold it to you, but now they're missing." Leaving the card on the boat, Jim and his friend headed back toward the parking lot. Just as they were leaving, Jim's phone rang. On the other end was a young woman named Jennifer De Leon, just 21 years old. She explained she'd found Jim's business card on her newly purchased yacht. Like Jim, she'd been trying to reach Mark and Lily too. After buying the boat, Jennifer and her husband realized they didn't know how to operate some of the controls and needed help figuring them out. Additionally, while cleaning up, they discovered personal belongings of Mark and Lily stuffed into drawers, items they wanted to return. When Jim asked when she'd last seen the couple, Jennifer replied, "The day we finalized the sale. We handed them the cash, watched them get into their car and drive off." Jim pressed further, asking if she knew where they might have gone next. Jennifer mentioned that during their limited conversations, Mark often talked about plans to buy a house in Mexico near the Arizona border. Apparently, one of their sons lived in Arizona and was expecting a baby soon. They wanted to be close by. After thanking Jennifer and ending the call, Jim couldn't shake the growing unease. Then another name came to mind, Patricia. For years, Mark and Lily had hired her to manage their finances since internet access on the yacht was spotty, making it hard to pay bills and handle taxes themselves. Jim called Patricia immediately. "Have you spoken to Mark or Lily recently?" Jim asked. When Patricia said no, Jim explained the situation and asked if either of them had deposited a large sum of money into their accounts. After all, they'd received nearly $500,000 from the yacht sale just days earlier. Patricia checked and found nothing. No deposits. Hanging up, Jim tried to make sense of it all. Why hadn't Mark and Lily deposited such a huge amount? Nothing added up. His gut told him something was terribly wrong. Without wasting another moment, Jim contacted the Newport Beach Police Department and filed a missing persons report for Mark and Lily. The police quickly began investigating. Their first step? Looking into the new buyers of the yacht, the De Leons. Digging into their background, officers discovered that Skylar De Leon, the 25-year-old husband, had a criminal record. He'd been arrested and convicted of armed robbery and had served time in prison. This revelation made the De Leons prime suspects. They were the last people to see Mark and Lily before they vanished, and now questions swirled around what really happened during that final meeting. The police sent one of their detectives to the marina to investigate further. Walking down the floating dock, the detective approached the reward. At first glance, it seemed deserted. Peering through the windows, the detective thought they spotted what looked like a bloody handprint inside the boat. That was enough to secure a search warrant. By the end of the day, officers swarmed the yacht, combing every inch for clues. But the bloody handprint turned out to be nothing more than rust. Beyond that, there was no evidence, no signs of struggle, no belongings left behind. Frustrated and out of leads, the police contacted Skylar de Leon. They told him to come to the station to explain his last interaction with Mark and Lily. Skylar arrived promptly, fully cooperative. He recounted how he'd seen the ad for the yacht in a fishing magazine and reached out to Mark. After meeting up, they took the boat for a test run, a sea trial, as it's called. Satisfied with the yacht, Skylar decided to move forward with the purchase. On November 15th, Skylar, his pregnant wife Jennifer, their young daughter, a notary, and another friend acting as a witness met Mark and Lily in the parking lot near the dock. In front of everyone, Skylar handed over a suitcase filled with cash. Mark and Lily signed the paperwork, officially transferring ownership of the yacht to the de Leons. With the deal done, Mark and Lily took the suitcase, climbed into their SUV and drove off, presumably heading toward Mexico. When asked how he could afford such an expensive vessel, Skylar initially claimed he'd made money as a child actor, appearing on the hit TV show Power Rangers. But mid-explanation he stopped himself. "You know what?" he admitted. "That's not true." Skylar confessed that the cash came from stolen drug money. Back in the 1990s, he'd robbed a powerful drug kingpin, a crime that landed him in jail. Before his arrest, however, he'd hidden the stolen money. Once released, he retrieved it. Knowing the cash was hot, he needed a way to launder it. Buying the yacht was part of his plan. Use the dirty money to buy the boat, then resell it later for clean funds. Shocked by this unexpected confession, the police realized Skylar had just implicated himself in a serious money laundering scheme. But instead of charging him, they decided to let him go. His honesty and cooperation were deemed valuable to the investigation. Next, the police interviewed Jennifer, the notary, and the friend who'd witnessed the sale. All three described the same scene: Mark and Lily accepting the suitcase of cash, signing the papers and driving away. The only discrepancy was in how they recalled Mark and Lily behaving. Skylar claimed Mark seemed anxious and paranoid about carrying so much money, while the notary insisted the couple appeared completely calm and normal. After speaking with everyone present during the final moments Mark and Lily were seen alive, the police hit a wall. Without new evidence or leads, the case went cold. What happened to Mark and Lily? Where did they go after leaving the marina? And why hadn't they deposited the money or contacted their family? Desperate for answers, the police turned to the media. They released a bulletin featuring photos of Mark and Lily, along with their SUV, asking the public for help. Within days, an older couple in Mexico called to report seeing the vehicle parked outside their home. Authorities rushed to the location, expecting to find Mark and Lily, or at least someone who knew them. Instead, when they knocked on the door, a man no one recognized answered. Confused, he told police the car belonged to his friend, Skylar de Leon. This revelation stunned investigators. Skylar had lied. He claimed he'd last seen Mark and Lily driving away after the sale, but clearly that wasn't true. Somehow, he'd ended up with their SUV and handed it off to this random person in Mexico. Armed with Skylar's earlier confession about laundering stolen drug money, the police arrested him. A search of his home uncovered items belonging to Mark and Lily, laptops, video cameras, and other belongings they wouldn't have left behind on the yacht. Despite the mounting evidence, Skylar denied any involvement, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. His wife, Jennifer, echoed this defense, even appearing on talk shows to proclaim her husband's innocence. But the police weren't convinced. They decided to revisit the witnesses from the day of the sale. First, they brought back Kathleen Harris, the notary. Under intense questioning, Kathleen cracked. She admitted she'd never met Mark or Lily. Skylar had paid her up front in cash to falsify and backdate the yacht sale documents. She had no idea what happened to the couple after signing the papers. Next, they questioned Alonzo Mason, the witness. At first, Alonzo stuck to the original story, that Mark and Lily took the cash, got in their SUV, and drove off. But when the police revealed Kathleen's confession, Alonzo clammed up. Realizing they needed leverage, they offered him a deal: cooperate fully and his sentence would be reduced. Alonzo finally broke. He confessed that Skylar had approached him weeks before the sale, claiming to be an international assassin hired to eliminate bad people. Skylar said he had a contract on Mark and Lily, framing them as criminals, and promised Alonzo $1 million if he helped carry out the hit. Eager for the money, Alonzo agreed. 2002, on November 15th, Skylar, Alonzo, and a third man, a hulking gang member named John Kennedy, arrived at the marina. Their plan? To murder Mark and Lily Hawks. The group wasn't there to finalize the yacht sale, far from it. Their real plan was to take Mark and Lily out for a sea trial, essentially a test drive of the boat. But when Mark and Lily arrived, something felt off. Mark, who had worked as a probation officer for years and was no stranger to dangerous individuals, immediately sensed trouble. In the parking lot, Mark grew visibly uneasy about getting on the boat with Skylar, Alonzo, and John. He even suggested rescheduling, saying today wasn't a good day. Sensing Mark's hesitation, Skylar stepped aside to make a phone call to his wife, Jennifer. Moments later, Jennifer arrived at the marina, holding their 1-year-old baby girl. The moment Lily saw the baby, her demeanor shifted completely. She fell in love with the child, cooing over her sweetness. Seeing how kind and gentle Jennifer seemed, Lily relaxed, and Mark, noticing this change, began to loosen up too. Eventually, Mark agreed to proceed with the sea trial. Just as they were about to board the yacht, Jennifer excused herself, explaining that the baby was upset and she needed to leave. Though Mark and Lily might have still harbored some unease about going out to sea with 3 unfamiliar men, they trusted the situation enough to continue. After all, Jennifer and the baby had been there, it seemed safe. The 5 of them boarded the Reward and set sail. Once they were far from shore, surrounded only by open water, Skylar and John approached Mark. They told him they wanted to show him something in the lower levels of the yacht. Trusting but wary, Mark followed them downstairs into the bedroom. Meanwhile, Alonzo stayed behind with Lily in the kitchen. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted from below deck, the sound of Skylar and John attacking Mark. That was Alonzo's cue. Without hesitation, he lunged at Lily, throwing her to the ground. Before she could react, he yanked her hands behind her back and cuffed them tightly with handcuffs he'd brought along. Hearing the noise, Lily looked toward the stairs just as Skylar and John reappeared, dragging Mark, who was now bound and bleeding, up with them. They forced Lily downstairs into the bedroom, tossing her onto the bed beside Mark. Terrified, Lily pleaded with Skylar, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this?" she cried. "We just met your wife. I held your baby. All we want is to go back to our family, to our children, to our grandchildren." But Skylar showed no mercy. He turned to Alonzo and ordered him to tape their mouths and blindfold them. As Alonzo carried out his instructions, Skylar took control of the yacht, steering it toward the deepest part of the ocean. Down in the bedroom, Mark managed to comfort Lily despite their dire circumstances. With great effort, he lifted his hand and gently stroked hers, whispering, "It's going to be okay. No matter what happens, we'll be together." When they reached the darkest depths of the sea, Skylar called down to John and Alonzo. They dragged Mark and Lily upstairs onto the deck, forcing them to sign documents transferring ownership of the yacht, and granting access to their bank accounts. In her distress, Lily misspelled her last name on one of the forms, leaving off the S. A small but haunting detail that would later stand out amidst the tragedy. After signing the documents, the 3 men led Mark and Lily to the back of the yacht. Skylar then instructed Alonzo, within earshot of the couple, to retrieve the anchor from the front of the boat. Realizing what was about to happen, Lily began pleading desperately. "Please let us live. Let us go back to land, to our family, to our grandchild." For a brief moment, Mark managed to break free from John's grip and delivered a hard kick to Skylar's groin. But it was short-lived. John quickly overpowered both Mark and Lily, forcing them to sit back to back on the deck. He secured their handcuffs together, linking them to one another. When Alonzo returned, dragging the heavy anchor behind him, Skylar grabbed the long metal chain attached to it. Carefully, he connected the far end of the chain, the bitter end, to their handcuffs, ensuring it was tightly fastened. Once satisfied, Skylar lifted the anchor with great effort and hurled it overboard. As soon as the anchor hit the water, Mark and Lily heard the deafening sound of the chain being pulled off the boat, grinding violently against the wooden railing as it disappeared into the depths below. The force of the anchor yanked them toward the side of the yacht. According to Alonzo, Lily's head struck the edge of the boat with an audible crack. Despite their desperate struggle, the weight of the anchor proved too much. Mark fought valiantly, clutching at anything he could find to keep himself and Lily above water. But eventually, the relentless pull of the anchor combined with the swaying of the boat overwhelmed them. Slowly, painfully, they were dragged up and over the railing, plunging into the ocean below. When they hit the water, they were fully alive, fully conscious, as they began their rapid descent 3,500 feet to the dark, crushing depths below. Alonzo later recounted how Skylar reacted after Mark and Lily vanished beneath the waves. Instead of remorse or guilt, Skylar let out an ecstatic, woohoo. Rushing to the edge of the boat, he peered into the water like a gleeful child, grinning and laughing until the surface grew calm and bubble-free. Then, without a second thought, he turned around and headed back to the cockpit, steering the yacht toward shore. Though Jennifer hadn't been present during the murder, she was deeply complicit in the crime. In fact, the entire plan had been her idea. Greedy for more money, she saw this scheme as the perfect opportunity to get rich. Her arrival at the marina earlier, with her baby in tow, had been carefully orchestrated to disarm Mark and Lily, putting them at ease so they'd willingly board the yacht. She knew exactly what awaited them out at sea. Throughout the ordeal, Skylar repeatedly called Jennifer to update her and seek her advice. Together, they plotted every step of the horrific act. Among the darkest discoveries made by investigators was a video camera found in Skylar and Jennifer's home. It belonged to Mark and Lily. Over the years, the couple had used it to document their travels aboard the Reward. When police played the footage, they were met with heartbreaking scenes. In one clip, Lily filmed the interior of the yacht, her voice warm and nostalgic. "This is probably one of the last times we'll be inside her," she said wistfully. "But we're so happy because we've found buyers who will take good care of this boat. We're excited about the future, about becoming grandparents." Suddenly, the footage of Lily aboard the Reward cuts off entirely. The next scene? Skylar and Jennifer celebrating Thanksgiving that same year, just days after brutally murdering Mark and Lily. They're seen playing with their daughter, laughing and smiling as if nothing had happened. It's chilling to think that they simply took the Hawks camera, the very device used to capture precious memories, and began recording their own lives over it. Erasing Mark and Lily's joyous moments, replacing them with their own. Jennifer and Skylar showed no remorse for their actions. To them, the lives they destroyed were merely stepping stones to wealth. In the end, justice was served, but not equally. Alonzo received a 20-year prison sentence, far less than he might have faced due to his cooperation with investigators. He provided every detail of the horrific events, ensuring the full truth came to light. Jennifer, however, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As for John Kennedy and Skylar, both were handed death sentences for their roles in the cold-blooded murders of Mark and Lily. But the story doesn't end there. The ocean has a way of keeping secrets, but it also whispers them back when least expected. Days turned into weeks, and the Hawks' disappearance became national news. Their family pleaded for answers on TV, holding up pictures of Mark and Lily, hoping someone somewhere had seen them. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the public, the Reward sat docked under the watchful eyes of investigators as forensics teams scoured every inch of its decks, cabins, and hidden compartments. What they found was enough to send shivers down even the most hardened detective's spine. Beneath the floorboards of the master bedroom, traces of blood were discovered, tiny droplets invisible to the naked eye but unmistakable under ultraviolet light. The chain used to tether the anchor still bore microscopic fragments of skin and fabric, evidence of the desperate struggle that had taken place. And then there was the video camera, the one Skylar and Jennifer so casually repurposed after erasing Mark and Lily's final memories. When forensic experts analyzed the footage more closely, something truly disturbing emerged. Between the cheerful clips of Thanksgiving dinner, faint audio glitches could be heard, muffled cries, distant splashes, and what sounded like mumbled voices pleading for mercy. It was as though the camera itself retained echoes of the tragedy, unwilling to let go of the horrors it had witnessed. Investigators couldn't explain how these sounds ended up embedded in the recording, but it added an unnerving layer to an already monstrous case. After the trial concluded, the Reward was seized by authorities. No one wanted anything to do with the cursed yacht, not even scrap dealers willing to dismantle it for parts. Eventually, it was towed to a remote marina where abandoned boats languished, forgotten by time. Locals nicknamed the area Ghost Fleet Bay. Rumors began circulating almost immediately. Fishermen claimed they'd seen strange lights flickering aboard the Reward late at night, despite the fact that the electricity had been cut off months prior. Others swore they heard faint screams carried on the wind whenever they sailed too close to the vessel. Some said they felt an overwhelming sense of dread just looking at the yacht, as if it radiated evil. One stormy evening, a group of teenagers dared each other to board the Reward. They weren't believers in ghost stories. They thought it would be fun to spend the night aboard the infamous boat and live stream their adventure. Armed with flashlights and cheap liquor, they climbed aboard, laughing nervously as they stepped onto the creaking deck. At first, everything seemed normal, or as normal as it could be on a rotting old yacht. The teens explored the cabin, joking about the murders and speculating about whether the spirits of Mark and Lily haunted the place. One of them pointed his phone at the master bedroom, filming as he pushed open the door. Inside, the air felt colder, heavier, as though the room resisted their presence. Then, without warning, the flashlight died. Complete darkness enveloped them. Panic set in as the teens fumbled to turn it back on, but the batteries were dead, brand new ones purchased earlier that day. Suddenly, a low moan echoed through the cabin, followed by the sound of metal grinding against wood. The anchor chain. "Did you hear that?" one of them whispered, voice trembling. Before anyone could respond, the boat lurched violently, throwing them off balance. A deafening crash came from above, the sound of the anchor being dragged across the deck. The teens scrambled toward the exit, tripping over furniture and each other in their haste to escape. As they burst out onto the deck, drenched in rain and terror, they froze. Standing at the stern of the boat was a figure, a man and a woman bound together by chains, their faces pale and lifeless. Their mouths moved silently, forming words no one could hear. Then, as quickly as they appeared, they vanished, sinking into the churning waves below. The teens didn't stop running until they reached shore. None of them ever spoke about what happened that night again. While justice may have been served in the courtroom, Jennifer de Leon's punishment continued behind bars. Life without parole meant she'd spend decades staring at concrete walls, haunted not only by guilt but by something far darker. From the moment she entered prison, Jennifer claimed she was tormented by visions. At first, the guards dismissed her claims as attempts to manipulate the system or gain sympathy. But as the incidents grew more frequent and more bizarre, even the skeptics began to question reality. Jennifer described seeing Mark and Lily standing at the foot of her bunk every night, their eyes hollow, their expressions unreadable. Sometimes they simply watched her. Other times they whispered her name over and over again, their voices echoing endlessly inside her cell. She begged to be transferred, insisting she wasn't safe, but no amount of pleading changed her situation. One night, during a routine check, a guard noticed something unusual. Jennifer lay curled up on her mattress, sobbing uncontrollably. Her hands were clasped tightly around her throat, as though trying to pry something loose. When the guard rushed in to help, he saw scratches appearing on her neck, deep, angry welts that hadn't been there moments before. Blood trickled between her fingers as she gasped for air, screaming, "They're here! They won't let me go!" Medical staff sedated her, attributing the wounds to self-inflicted injuries brought on by stress. Yet none of them could explain why Jennifer's cell reeked of salt water long after the incident, or why her pillow was soaked through as if she'd been submerged in the ocean. Skylar de Leon faced a different kind of torment awaiting execution on death row. Unlike Jennifer, he refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. To him, Mark and Lily were collateral damage, a means to an end. He often bragged to fellow inmates about how clever he'd been, how close he'd come to getting away with the perfect crime. But arrogance has a way of unraveling even the strongest minds. Skylar started experiencing vivid nightmares shortly after arriving at the penitentiary. In his dreams, he relived the murder over and over again, except this time things unfolded differently. Instead of plunging into the water, Mark and Lily stood on the deck, unbound and unhurt. They smiled at him, not kindly but with malice, and beckoned him closer. "No," Skylar would mutter in his sleep, thrashing against his restraints. "You're dead. You're supposed to be dead." In the dream, the couple never answered. They just kept smiling, reaching out until their icy fingers brushed against his skin. Then the scene shifted. Skylar found himself underwater, chained to the same anchor he'd used to kill Mark and Lily. The weight dragged him deeper and deeper, the pressure crushing his chest. Just as he thought he couldn't take it anymore, he opened his eyes to see Mark and Lily floating above him, watching silently as the darkness swallowed him whole. He always woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding like a drum. But it wasn't just the dreams that terrified him. During waking hours, he swore he could feel cold hands gripping his ankles, pulling him downward. Once, while showering, he claimed to have seen blood swirling down the drain, along with strands of hair that matched Lily's golden locks. The other inmates avoided him after that, whispering that Skylar was cursed. Even the toughest criminals refused to share a cell with him, convinced his bad karma would rub off on them. Years passed and the world moved on. The Hawks family eventually stopped giving interviews, retreating into private grief. The media coverage faded, replaced by newer, fresher tragedies. But the ocean never forgets. Divers exploring the seabed near where Mark and Lily were murdered reported finding something extraordinary, an intact suitcase buried beneath layers of silt. Inside were stacks of cash, untouched by decay, along with personal belongings belonging to the couple. Among the items was a small journal Lily had kept throughout their retirement journey. The last entry read, "Today feels different. Something heavy hangs in the air, like a storm waiting to break. I don't know why, but I can't shake the feeling that our time aboard the Reward is coming to an end. If anything happens to us, know we loved deeply and lived fully. Please forgive those who wronged us because hatred only weighs the soul down. Love always, Lily." As researchers examined the journal, they noticed faint indentations on the final page, traces of writing pressed onto the paper beneath. Using special techniques, they revealed a message written in Mark's handwriting. "If you find this, it means we didn't make it. Don't mourn us. Instead, remember the joy we shared. And know this, justice isn't done until the truth rises to the surface." To this day, divers report strange occurrences near the site of the Hawk's final descent. Equipment malfunctions, compasses spin wildly, and eerie silhouettes appear in the murky depths, vanishing as quickly as they materialize. Some believe it's Mark and Lily, unable to rest until their killers face true accountability. Others think it's merely the ocean reclaiming its own. Whatever the truth, one thing remains certain. Some crimes are too monstrous to fade quietly into history. The divers who recovered the suitcase from the ocean floor couldn't shake the feeling that they had disturbed something ancient and malevolent. The moment they surfaced with the case, the weather shifted violently. What had been a calm, clear day turned into a raging storm within minutes. Waves crashed against their boat, and the wind howled like a chorus of anguished voices. One diver swore he heard his name being called from beneath the waves, though no one else was in the water. They scrambled to leave the area, but not before catching glimpses of shadowy figures moving just beneath the surface. Figures that seemed to be reaching for them. Back on shore, the divers tried to dismiss their unease as exhaustion or overactive imaginations. But the nightmares began soon after. Each man reported dreams where they were submerged in freezing water, unable to breathe, while ghostly hands pulled at their limbs. In these dreams, Mark and Lily stood above them on an invisible platform, staring down with hollow eyes. Their lips moved, forming words the divers couldn't hear, but the message was clear. "You've awakened something that should have stayed buried." The journal found inside the suitcase became the center of fascination and fear for those investigating the case. Researchers handling it described strange occurrences in their labs. Lights flickered without explanation, equipment malfunctioned, and some claimed to feel icy fingers brushing against their necks when no one else was in the room. One researcher, a woman named Dr. Elena Carter, spent weeks poring over the journal, determined to uncover any hidden clues. She began noticing subtle changes in her surroundings. Shadows moved when there was no light source to cast them, and objects would shift positions overnight, despite the lab being locked and monitored. One evening, as Dr. Carter worked late, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread settle over her. The air grew colder, and the faint sound of sobbing echoed through the empty lab. Startled, she turned around but saw nothing unusual. Returning to the journal, she flipped to a page she hadn't examined yet. There, scrawled in shaky handwriting, was a new entry, not written by Mark or Lily. It read, "Why did you bring me back? Leave me alone." Beneath it was a series of numbers, 3500. Dr. Carter's blood ran cold. She knew exactly what those numbers meant, the depth, in feet, where Mark and Lily's bodies had sunk. From that night forward, Dr. Carter refused to work on the journal. Her colleagues noticed she had changed. Once meticulous and driven, she now avoided even speaking about the Hawks case. When pressed, she only muttered cryptic warnings. Some truths aren't meant to be uncovered. Some doors shouldn't be opened. Meanwhile, Jennifer de Leon's mental state continued to deteriorate in prison. The visions of Mark and Lily became more frequent and vivid. At first, they appeared only at night, standing silently at the foot of her bunk. But eventually, they started appearing during the day, walking alongside her in the exercise yard or sitting across from her in the cafeteria. Other inmates whispered that Jennifer talked to herself constantly, pleading with thin air to leave her alone. One particularly chilling incident occurred during a routine medical checkup. As the nurse examined Jennifer, she froze mid-sentence, her pen hovering above the clipboard. Without warning, she screamed, pointing at Jennifer's chest. "What is that?" she shrieked. The guards rushed in, but all they saw was Jennifer clutching her chest, her face pale with terror. The nurse later quit her job, claiming she'd seen a hand, translucent and dripping wet, emerging from Jennifer's sternum, its fingers curling inward like claws. Skylar de Leon's descent into madness mirrored Jennifer's, though his torment took a different form. While awaiting execution, he became obsessed with the idea that he could reverse what he'd done. He began sketching elaborate designs on the walls of his cell using stolen pieces of chalk. These drawings depicted a ritual involving ropes, chains, and symbols etched into the ground. When guards questioned him, Skylar rambled incoherently about calling them back and undoing the tether. His behavior grew increasingly erratic until one fateful night when the entire prison staff was awakened by ear-splitting screams coming from death row. Guards rushed to Skylar's cell only to find it empty, or so it seemed at first glance. On closer inspection, they realized Skylar was huddled in the far corner, his body contorted unnaturally. His eyes were wide open, staring at something no one else could see. Blood trickled from his ears and nose, and his lips moved rapidly, forming silent prayers. Before anyone could intervene, Skylar let out one final, guttural scream and collapsed. Paramedics pronounced him dead on the scene, citing a massive heart attack. However, the autopsy revealed no physical cause of death. Stranger still, the walls of his cell were covered in fresh scratches, marks too high for Skylar to have made himself. Among the chaos of lines and symbols, one phrase was repeated over and over again: "They're coming." Word of Skylar's mysterious demise spread quickly among the prison population, fueling rumors of a curse tied to the Hawks' murders. Even hardened criminals began acting strangely, reporting unexplained noises, sudden temperature drops, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their cells. The warden ordered extra security measures, but nothing could quell the growing sense of dread that permeated the facility. Outside the prison walls, the legend of Mark and Lily Hawks continued to grow. Stories circulated about boaters encountering inexplicable phenomena near the site of their murder. Some claimed to see a spectral yacht gliding silently across the horizon, its sails tattered and its deck eerily illuminated by an unseen light. Others reported hearing faint cries carried on the wind, accompanied by the unmistakable clinking of chains. Fishermen avoided the area altogether, fearing they might meet the same fate as the Hawks. In Newport Beach, the Hawks' surviving family struggled to move on. Their sons, devastated by the loss of their father and stepmother, found themselves plagued by recurring dreams. In these dreams, they stood on the deck of the Reward, watching helplessly as Mark and Lily were dragged into the depths. Each time they woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, convinced they could still feel the weight of the anchor chain pulling them downward. The youngest son, Alex, became particularly withdrawn, spending hours staring at old photographs of his parents. One day, while cleaning out the attic, he stumbled upon a box filled with mementos from their sailing days. Inside, he discovered a small wooden carving of a bird, a gift Mark had made for Lily shortly after they purchased the yacht. As Alex held the carving, he felt an overwhelming surge of sadness, followed by a deep sense of anger. From that moment on, he vowed to uncover every last detail of his parents' murder, no matter the cost. Alex's quest for answers led him to Ghost Fleet Bay, where the Reward remained docked, slowly rotting away. Ignoring local warnings, he boarded the yacht alone, armed with only a flashlight and a digital recorder. The air inside was thick with decay, and the silence was oppressive. Every step creaked ominously beneath his feet, and shadows danced in the corners of his vision. He explored the cabin methodically, documenting everything on his recorder. When he reached the master bedroom, he hesitated. The room felt heavier than the rest of the yacht, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Against his better judgment, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the temperature plummeted. His breath fogged in front of him, and the flashlight flickered erratically. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through his bones. Panicking, Alex backed toward the door, but it slammed shut before he could escape. Trapped, he frantically searched for another exit, but the windows were sealed shut. Then from the darkness, a voice spoke, a soft, mournful whisper that sent chills racing down his spine. "Help us," it said. Alex spun around, shining his light in every direction, but the room was empty. Or so it seemed. As he stood frozen in place, shapes began to emerge from the shadows. Figures coalesced before his eyes, Mark and Lily bound together by chains, their faces pale and translucent. They didn't move toward him. Instead, they simply watched, their expressions sorrowful yet resolute. Alex dropped the flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'll make it right. I promise." When Alex regained consciousness, he was lying on the deck of the Reward, bathed in sunlight. The door to the master bedroom stood wide open, and the oppressive atmosphere was gone. Shaken but determined, he left the marina vowing to expose the truth behind his parents' deaths. Over the next several months, he poured all his energy into advocating for justice, sharing their story with anyone who would listen. Though many dismissed him as grief-stricken or delusional, others began to take notice. Local news outlets picked up the story, reigniting public interest in the case. Soon, petitions calling for a deeper investigation gained traction online, drawing attention from paranormal researchers and true crime enthusiasts alike. But the more Alex dug into the mystery, the more unsettling connections he uncovered. He learned that Skylar de Leon wasn't the first person to use the Reward for nefarious purposes. Decades earlier, the yacht had belonged to a wealthy businessman accused of smuggling illegal goods along the California coast. Rumors swirled that he'd used the vessel to dispose of evidence, and possibly people, who threatened his empire. Could the boat itself be cursed, carrying the weight of past atrocities? As Alex delved deeper into the yacht's history, strange coincidences began piling up. People connected to the case, investigators, journalists, even casual observers, reported experiencing bizarre phenomena. Electronics malfunctioned, pets acted aggressively, and vivid nightmares plagued those who dared delve too deeply into the Hawks tragedy. Some believed the spirits of Mark and Lily were trying to communicate, urging the living to uncover the full extent of the horrors committed aboard the Reward. Others feared that darker forces were at play, forces older and more sinister than anyone could imagine. Despite the mounting evidence of supernatural involvement, Alex refused to give up. He organized a team of divers, historians, and psychics to explore the wreckage site where his parents had perished. Using advanced sonar technology, they mapped out the seabed, searching for any remnants of the crime. What they found defied explanation: a massive circular pattern etched into the sand, spanning hundreds of feet in diameter. At its center lay fragments of metal and wood, remnants of the Reward, arranged in a deliberate configuration. To the psychics on the team, the formation radiated intense negative energy, pulsating like a heartbeat. That night, as the team reviewed their findings aboard their research vessel, an unexplainable event occurred. The lights dimmed and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring the stars. Instruments went haywire, registering impossible readings. Water temperatures rising and falling rapidly, pressure levels spiking, and eerie echoes reverberating through the hull. Then, from the depths below, a sound unlike anything they'd ever heard rose to the surface. A mournful wail that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It was followed by a single word, spoken in a voice both familiar and otherworldly: free. The next morning, the team awoke to find their equipment destroyed, their recordings erased, and their notes scattered across the deck. Only Alex remembered the events of the previous night clearly. Clutching the wooden bird carving his father had made, he stared out at the endless expanse of water, knowing the journey was far from over. Whatever secrets lay hidden beneath the waves, they demanded to be unearthed, and Alex was prepared to face whatever horrors awaited him in the abyss. The sound of that single word, free, lingered in Alex's mind long after the fog had lifted and the sun broke through the clouds. It wasn't just the voice itself that haunted him, but the weight behind it, a desperate plea laced with anguish and rage. The psychics on his team refused to speak about what they'd sensed during the dive, their faces pale and drawn. One of them, an older woman named Marla, muttered cryptic warnings as she packed up her equipment. Some chains can't be broken without breaking yourself first. When Alex pressed her for more, she simply shook her head and walked away, leaving him alone with the wreckage of their findings. Determined to piece together the puzzle, Alex spent days combing through every scrap of information he could gather. He pored over old maritime records, searching for any mention of the Reward before it became the Hawks' beloved yacht. What he uncovered chilled him to the bone. Decades earlier, the boat had been involved in a string of disappearances along the California coastline. Fishermen, tourists, even entire families had vanished without a trace after encountering the vessel under mysterious circumstances. Each disappearance was accompanied by eerie reports from witnesses: lights flickering beneath the waves, ghostly figures standing on the deck, and the unmistakable clinking of chains dragging across the hull. One account stood out among the rest. A sailor named Henry Caldwell claimed he'd been hired to repair the Reward in the 1970s after its previous owner mysteriously drowned offshore. According to Henry, the yacht felt wrong from the moment he stepped aboard. Tools would go missing only to reappear hours later covered in rust. and strange symbols carved into the woodwork seemed to shift positions when no one was looking. On his final night working on the boat, Henry swore he saw a figure standing at the bow, a woman with hollow eyes and seaweed tangled in her hair. She pointed toward the ocean before vanishing into thin air. Terrified, Henry abandoned the job and never set foot on a boat again. Alex couldn't shake the parallels between Henry's story and his own experiences aboard the Reward. The circular pattern etched into the seabed bore an uncanny resemblance to the symbols described in Henry's account. Could these markings have summoned, or trapped, something in the depths? And if so, what role did Skylar de Leon play in awakening it? As Alex delved deeper into the mystery, he began experiencing phenomena he couldn't explain. At first, it was subtle. Doors closing on their own, faint whispers echoing through empty rooms, and shadows moving where there should have been none. But soon, the disturbances escalated. Late one night, while reviewing footage from the dive, Alex noticed something he hadn't seen before. In the background of the sonar images, faint outlines of humanoid shapes could be seen floating just beyond the circular formation. Their forms were distorted, almost skeletal, and they appeared to be reaching toward the surface. The next morning, Alex woke to find his apartment in disarray. Books lay scattered across the floor, furniture overturned, and the wooden bird carving shattered into pieces. Amidst the chaos, a message had been scrawled onto his wall in what looked like wet sand: "They're waiting." Shaken but resolute, Alex cleaned up the mess and vowed not to let fear derail his investigation. Yet, the incident marked the beginning of a series of increasingly disturbing events. During a follow-up meeting with the remaining members of his team, Alex shared his findings, including the eerie message left in his home. The group decided to return to the site of the circular pattern, hoping to capture clearer evidence of whatever lurked below. This time, they brought specialized cameras capable of filming in complete darkness, as well as audio equipment designed to pick up frequencies beyond human hearing. As they descended into the water, the divers reported feeling an unnatural pull, as though the current was dragging them toward the center of the formation. The deeper they went, the colder the water became, until their breath misted inside their masks despite the tropical climate above. When they reached the seabed, the divers discovered something horrifying. Embedded within the sand were dozens of anchors, each connected to chains leading off into the blackness. Some of the chains were snapped or corroded, while others stretched taut, disappearing into the abyss. Floating amidst the wreckage were objects that sent shivers down their spines: wallets, jewelry, and personal belongings belonging to victims whose cases had gone cold years ago. Among the debris, one diver spotted a pair of handcuffs identical to those used on Mark and Lily. Attached to them was a fragment of fabric matching the clothing Lily had worn on the day of her murder. Back on the surface, the team reviewed the footage captured during the dive. What they saw defied logic. Ghostly figures drifted silently through the water, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their faces were obscured, but their forms were unmistakably human. One figure, however, stood apart from the rest. It hovered near the edge of the frame, its body translucent yet solid enough to cast a shadow. Unlike the others, this entity turned to face the camera, revealing a face that made Alex's blood run cold. It was Skylar de Leon, his expression twisted with agony. His mouth opened wide, emitting a silent scream before he dissolved into the darkness. The team agreed unanimously not to return to the site. Whatever horrors awaited them in the depths were far beyond their understanding or ability to confront. For Alex, though, retreat wasn't an option. He became obsessed with unraveling the connection between the Reward, the circular pattern, and the spirits trapped beneath the waves. His research led him to a little-known legend about a curse tied to vessels used for malevolent purposes. According to folklore, ships employed in acts of betrayal or violence carried the souls of their victims until justice was served, or until the cycle repeated itself. Convinced that breaking the curse required confronting the truth head-on, Alex decided to perform a ritual based on the accounts he'd uncovered. Gathering materials mentioned in the legends, salt, candles, and offerings, he returned to Ghost Fleet Bay under the cover of darkness. Docked nearby, the Reward loomed ominously against the moonlit sky, its rotting timbers groaning as if aware of his presence. Ignoring the creeping sense of dread, Alex boarded the yacht and made his way to the master bedroom, the epicenter of the haunting. Inside, he arranged the candles in a protective circle and placed the wooden bird carving, painstakingly repaired, at its center. Lighting the wicks, he recited the incantation he'd memorized, his voice trembling as the words spilled forth. The air grew heavy, and the flames flickered wildly despite the absence of wind. Then, from the shadows, voices emerged, dozens of them, overlapping in a cacophony of pain and fury. Alex recognized two among them, Mark and Lily, their tones pleading yet accusatory. "Why didn't you save us?" they cried, their words cutting deeper than any blade. Tears streaming down his face, Alex responded, "I'm here now. I'll make it right." The room erupted in chaos. Furniture toppled, glass shattered, and the walls seemed to pulse inward as if the yacht itself were alive. Through the maelstrom, Alex glimpsed figures materializing around him. Victims of the reward's dark history, their translucent bodies writhing in torment. Among them stood Skylar and Jennifer, their expressions contorted with guilt and despair. They reached out to him, their mouths forming silent pleas for redemption. Suddenly, the wooden bird carving burst into flames, illuminating the room with an ethereal glow. The voices ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. Slowly, the figures began to fade, dissolving into wisps of light that drifted upward toward the ceiling. As the last remnants of the apparitions disappeared, the yacht shuddered violently, its structure creaking as if releasing centuries of pent-up sorrow. Exhausted but unharmed, Alex stumbled onto the deck, collapsing under the weight of what he'd witnessed. By morning, the reward was gone. The once abandoned marina stood eerily quiet, the only sign of the yacht a scorched patch on the dock where it had rested. News outlets speculated about foul play or vandalism, but Alex knew better. The spirits of Mark, Lily, and countless others had finally found peace, or so he hoped. Yet, even as he tried to rebuild his life, Alex couldn't escape the lingering feeling that something remained unfinished. Shadows still lingered at the edges of his vision, and the faint clinking of chains echoed in his dreams. Months passed and the world moved on. The Hawks case faded from headlines, relegated to the annals of unsolved mysteries. But for Alex, the nightmare continued. One evening, while walking along the beach, he noticed a bottle half buried in the sand. Curious, he picked it up and examined its contents. Inside was a rolled-up piece of paper, brittle with age. Unfurling it carefully, he read the jagged handwriting scrawled across the page. "To whom it may concern. If you found this, then you've stumbled upon the truth too late. The reward is cursed, its chains binding not just the dead but the living who dare seek answers. Leave it buried. Do not listen to the whispers. Do not follow the lights. And whatever you do, do not look back." Before Alex could react, a gust of wind tore the note from his hands, carrying it out to sea. Panicked, he scanned the horizon, and froze. Far in the distance, illuminated by the setting sun, floated a familiar silhouette. The reward. Its sails billowed lazily in the breeze, and faint figures moved across its deck, their forms indistinct yet unmistakable. As Alex watched, transfixed, the yacht turned toward him, gliding effortlessly through the water. Desperate to escape, he backed away, his feet sinking into the wet sand. But no matter how fast he ran, the yacht kept pace, drawing closer with each passing second. Finally, unable to flee any longer, Alex stopped and faced the approaching vessel. Standing at the bow was a figure he recognized instantly, his father, Mark. Beside him stood Lily, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Neither smiled nor spoke. Instead, they gestured for him to join them aboard. Paralyzed by conflicting emotions, grief, longing, and terror, Alex hesitated. The yacht halted mere yards from shore, rocking gently as if waiting patiently. Then, from the depths below, a low rumble rose, vibrating through the earth beneath his feet. Slowly, the sand shifted, revealing another anchor chained to the seabed. Its link stretched upward, connecting not to the yacht but to Alex himself. With a jolt, he realized the truth. He had become part of the curse, bound to the reward and all it represented. As the realization dawned, the chain tightened, pulling him inexorably toward the water. Fighting against it only made the force stronger, dragging him inch by inch into the surf. Above him, the yacht's sails darkened, blotting out the fading sunlight. Mark and Lily's expressions softened, offering not salvation but acceptance. Acceptance of what Alex didn't know, and perhaps never would. The tide swallowed him whole. As the icy water closed over Alex's head, the world above vanished in an instant. The surface shimmered faintly above him, a distant memory of light and warmth, but it was already slipping away. Around him, the ocean pressed in with crushing weight, its currents pulling him deeper into the abyss. Yet, despite the lack of air, Alex felt no immediate panic, only a strange, suffocating calm. His limbs moved as if guided by some unseen force, propelling him downward toward the yawning darkness below. The chain around his ankle dragged relentlessly, its links clinking softly in the silence. As he descended, ghostly shapes began to emerge from the gloom, shadows that twisted and writhed like living things. They circled him curiously, their forms indistinct yet menacing, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the murk. Some reached out with elongated fingers, brushing against his skin with a touch colder than the surrounding water. Each contact sent jolts of dread coursing through him, but still he couldn't fight back. He was being led somewhere, to something, and resistance felt futile. Far below, the seabed came into view, illuminated dimly by an eerie greenish glow emanating from the sand itself. At its center loomed the circular pattern etched into the earth, now pulsating faintly as though alive. Anchors of all sizes were embedded within the formation, their chains stretching outward in every direction, connecting to countless others lost in the depths. Among them, Alex spotted familiar objects, fragments of the reward, personal belongings of its victims, and even the shattered remains of the wooden bird carving he had painstakingly repaired. It was as though the curse had claimed everything tied to the yacht, binding it forever to this underwater purgatory. At the heart of the circle stood two figures, Mark and Lily Hawks. Their translucent bodies shimmered faintly, their expressions serene yet sorrowful. Between them floated Skylar and Jennifer de Leon, their faces twisted with anguish and regret. Surrounding them were dozens more spirits, each tethered to the cursed anchors, their forms flickering like dying flames. The sight filled Alex with both pity and terror. These were not vengeful ghosts seeking retribution. They were prisoners trapped in a cycle of suffering with no end in sight. Mark stepped forward, his hand extended toward Alex. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice echoing strangely, neither loud nor soft. "This place, it consumes everything." Alex tried to speak, but the pressure of the water made it impossible. Instead, he shook his head, tears streaming from his eyes and dissolving into the brine. He wanted to scream, to beg for forgiveness or release, but the words wouldn't form. All he could do was stare helplessly as Mark and Lily approached. Lily knelt beside him, her touch surprisingly gentle despite the coldness radiating from her. "We didn't want this for you," she whispered. "But you followed the whispers too far. Now you're part of it." Before Alex could process her words, the ground beneath them began to shift. The circular pattern glowed brighter, its edges cracking open like fissures in the earth. From the widening gaps emerged tendrils of black smoke, writhing and coiling as they snaked upward. The spirits recoiled in fear, their forms wavering as the smoke enveloped them one by one. Whatever this new presence was, it dwarfed even the curse of the reward. Skylar let out a guttural scream, clutching at his chest as the smoke seeped into his translucent body. His features contorted in agony before dissolving entirely, leaving behind only the faint outline of his silhouette. Jennifer followed moments later, her cries muffled as the darkness consumed her. One by one, the other spirits met the same fate, their tethers snapping as they were pulled into the void. "No!" Alex shouted, or thought he did. The sound was swallowed by the oppressive silence of the deep. He struggled against the chain binding him, thrashing wildly in a desperate attempt to escape. But the more he fought, the tighter the links became, digging into his flesh until blood mingled with the salty water. Mark and Lily remained motionless, watching with sad resignation as the smoke encircled them. "It's time," Mark said simply, taking Lily's hand. Without another word, they allowed themselves to be drawn into the abyss, their forms fading into nothingness. Alone now, Alex braced himself for the inevitable. The smoke wrapped around him like a suffocating cocoon, its icy tendrils piercing his skin and burrowing deep into his soul. Visions flooded his mind, fragmented images of the past, present, and future colliding in a kaleidoscope of horror. He saw the faces of everyone connected to the reward, the victims, the perpetrators, the innocent bystanders. Each face bore an expression of despair, their voices overlapping in a deafening chorus of anguish. Then, amidst the chaos, a single figure emerged, a towering, shadowy entity with eyes like burning embers. It leaned close, its breath freezing the very marrow of his bones. "You sought answers," it rasped, its voice reverberating through the void. "Now you will bear the burden." With that, the vision ended, and Alex found himself lying on the deck of the reward. The yacht rocked gently on the waves, its sails billowing in the breeze as if nothing had happened. For a moment he thought it had all been a dream. But then he noticed the chain still wrapped around his ankle, its links corroded and rusted. Worse yet, when he looked down at his hands, they were translucent, shimmering faintly in the sunlight. Panic set in as realization dawned. He wasn't free. He was bound to the yacht, just like the others before him. The curse had claimed another victim. Days turned into weeks, and Alex wandered the empty decks of the reward, searching for answers, or perhaps redemption. He called out to the spirits he knew lingered nearby, but they never responded. Occasionally, he caught glimpses of them in the corners of his vision, their forms flickering like candle flames about to extinguish. Sometimes he heard their voices whispering his name, urging him to join them in the depths. But Alex resisted, clinging stubbornly to the hope that there might still be a way to break the cycle. His chance came during a violent storm that swept across the coastline. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the churning waters as the reward drifted aimlessly. Alex felt a pull stronger than ever before, drawing him toward the edge of the yacht. Peering over the railing, he saw the ocean roiling unnaturally, its surface breaking apart to reveal the circular pattern glowing ominously below. Chains rose from the depths, their links rattling as they stretched upward toward him. This was it, the moment of reckoning. Summoning every ounce of courage, Alex retrieved the remnants of the wooden bird carving from the cabin. Clutching it tightly, he climbed onto the railing and prepared to leap. If the curse thrived on malevolence and betrayal, then perhaps an act of selflessness could undo it. Closing his eyes, he whispered a final apology to his parents and jumped. The impact was instantaneous. The chains snapped taut, yanking him downward with unimaginable force. As he plunged into the abyss, the glowing circle erupted in a blinding flash of light. The anchors disintegrated, their links shattering like glass. One by one, the spirits tethered to them ascended toward the surface, their forms dissolving into beams of radiant energy. Among them, Alex saw Mark and Lily, smiling faintly as they faded into the ether. When the light finally subsided, the seabed was barren, stripped of its cursed relics. Above, the storm clouds parted, revealing a clear night sky dotted with stars. Somewhere in the distance, the reward sank silently beneath the waves, its hull creaking softly as it disappeared forever. Though the curse had been broken, Alex's fate remained uncertain. Whether he had joined his parents in eternal peace or become lost in the void alongside the entity that ruled it, no one would ever know. What was certain, however, was that the reward's dark legacy had come to an end, at least for now. And yet, as fishermen returned to the once forbidden waters, they couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered beneath the surface. Faint echoes of chains echoed through the depths, and shadows danced just beyond the reach of their nets. Perhaps the ocean hadn't fully relinquished its secrets after all. If you like this chilling start, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this video with your friends. Leave a comment below telling us what scares you the most, and click the link in the description to discover how you can have a 90% done-for-you profitable online business built just for you. Generate maximum money in minimum time without selling or setting anything up yourself.